Hi everyone, Melanie Muenchinger here, illustrator for Gina K Designs. Today I have a new project for you with my newest set from Gina K Designs, This Girl Is, and I'm going to be doing a paper piecing technique. You can do this with either of the line art images of the girls, very minimal supplies for this card. The products that you're going to need, we're obviously going to need some pattern paper. You could also stamp up your own paper or do some sponging to piece in here, but I'm just going to use a pattern paper here. This card I made for Karen Hightower, who is on our team. I wrote a little post about her on Facebook, so you can read a little bit more about why I chose this music, sheet music pattern from the Journey of the Heart set. But today I'm going to be making a card for another friend of mine on our design team, a newer member, Arjita. Arjita is from India, and so I thought this beautiful piece of paper from the Gina K Give Thanks pack would be really nice. Just these colors and these flowers and leaves really remind me of embroidery and henna painting, and so I just think it's perfect for Arjita. In addition to that pattern paper, you're going to need some of the Gina K Pure Luxury White and the black onyx. These measurements here, I've got a piece that is 2 3/8 by, let's see, 4 inches, and then one that is 2.5 by 4 1/4. This piece here, this is 3 3/4 inches by 5, and the black piece is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 inch, and this is just an A2 base. So I'll post these measurements below. For the sake of time, I've gone ahead and just adhered these together, and then I'm going to pop these up with some foam squares. The markers that I'm going to use to color Arjita, I'm going to be using the CR11. I've got the GB2 and the GB8. I think these are really pretty for darker flesh tones. And then I'm going to be using the GG2 and the GG5 for her dark hair. Got the Gina K Designs Amalgam ink, so this is going to stamp the image really well, but it's also going to be nice for stamping onto that pattern paper so it won't smudge and so that I can cut it out. And that's all we're going to be using today. You'll need some kind of block or a MISTI for this image. So both of these images, as you can see, will fit on the Gina K 3 by 4 inch block. So let's go ahead and do our stamping. So these pattern paper packs that Gina K carries are 6 by 6. So it's going to yield just enough for your mat. And then you just need a piece that's large enough for that dress or that top. So we're going to begin by stamping her onto this white mat. So this jet black amalgam ink is a very, very dark black, and it gives really, really crisp detail, perfect for coloring. So I'm going to stamp her just slightly off center because I want room for the word there. So I'm going to put that right about here. And it doesn't have to touch the bottom. You can actually cut that out and make that work with your piecing. And then I'm going to use the word talented today on Arjita's card because her coloring just blows my mind. It is just so beautiful, the watercoloring that she does, and all of the depth and just really delicate features and flowers especially that she's able to create with color. So sending her this card, talented. Okay, so that's another way that you can use these words in addition to being held in their hands and other things that I've shown in videos and my samples so far. Okay, so now we want to stamp this again onto our pattern paper, and then we're going to cut out just the dress portion. So it's not really critical that you get those hands or her face. Kind of hard to avoid unless you mask it, but we're really just making sure that we get the whole dress on there. So I'm just going to stamp this. Pick it up, and I'm going to let this dry for a second. You can also use the heat gun. It does have kind of a glossy finish, so depending on how humid it is where you are, that might take a little time to dry. So let's go ahead and do our coloring real quick. So I am going to be using the GB8 and the GB2 on her skin. So I'm going to do the dark areas first. So the places that are going to be darkest are going to be under her chin. And I'm going to imagine the light coming from the top right. So I'm going to have the shadow cast down this way. And then it's going to be dark under her hair and down on this left side of her face, or right for her, but it looks like left to us. And then just a little under her nose, and then we're gonna have just some light hitting her cheek and her nose right there. Now I'm gonna, and then we're also gonna do, let me go ahead and I'm gonna do on the hands. So the open palm is going to be, I went outside the line just a little bit here. I can go back and fix that with the blender pen. It's going to be on the underside. The open palm that's raised is going to be a little bit lighter. So color these fingers back here. So just think about it cupping, and you see this skin is darker right here. Okay. And then I'm going to take this GB2 and I'm just going to go and fill in. So this has a little bit more pink in it. And you can do some tip-to-tip coloring to blend these together. So I'm going to go on this side. And then if you want to go back, just make the darkest areas a little bit darker, you can. And then I'm going to use just a little pop of red here for her lips. Okay. Let me just take my blender pen right here real quick. And if you get outside the lines, which is easier for me to do now, having a harder time seeing, my eyes are changing a little bit. So that's just going to go right away. So what it's doing is just pushing that color back into the image. Okay, so that's all the coloring that I'm going to do on that. Then I'm going to do her hair. And so her hair looks very, very dark brown to black. So the darkest areas are going to be around her neck and then behind this arm right here. And the image is very whimsical, so you might really like to do a lot of shading and highlights with the hair, but I'm going to fill in most of this, and I'm going to use that gray as the highlight, but I don't want it to look like she has gray hairs. So I'm just going to mix in just a little bit of it. And what you can also do is you can also use your blender pen to remove some of that black. So I'm just going to put a little bit in here with this GG2. So I didn't pick true black because then you just really wouldn't see any of that detail at all. So just a little bit of this will suggest those highlights. Okay. Now let's go ahead and cut this out. You could also blot it if you want to with a piece of scratch paper. So I'm going to take this, I had my mat right here. So I'm just going to blot that. Okay, and you can see staying very wet on this glossy paper. That time it just came off a little bit. So let me just do a quick hit with my heat gun. Okay, and then we're going to cut this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along this line. So the bodice and the sleeves. Let me go ahead and cut these hands off. And then I'm going to come down the arm. And it's a little bit harder to see on this red paper, the lines, than it was on this music paper here. But I love that sheet music so much. Okay, so then I'm just going to go down this line, the inside of her arm, and then down on the little neckline of her top, the shoulder, go up the arm here. So if you're not sure, don't take off more than you need to. You can go back and put some of it in. So now I'm just cutting into the wrist here. So I know it's hard to see. These are tiny little cuts. Right there. And then right here. I think I've got it. Let's see. So this little wrist. There. And then this last little part around the edge. Okay. And if you cut it bigger, it'll go outside of that line, so you're not going to see it. All right, so just like that. Okay. Now we're going to go in and we're going to glue this. And if you go a little bit inside the line, you can also fill that in. So I got just a tiny bit in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this red marker here. Just fill that in a little bit. You can also do some shading on here if you want, since we have this red marker. If you want to add a little bit of shading to the underside here of these sleeves, you can do that. Adds just a little bit of detail. And then on the Connect glue, you can either put it directly onto the image or onto the piece that you are adhering. And I love this Connect glue because, I mean, you can barely even see those little beads there. You can get in the tiniest, tightest little areas with as little or as much glue as you want. So we're going to flip this over, and then all we have to do is just to put this on some foam and adhere it to the card. So I wanted to change up this layout. Instead of doing it portrait style, I want to do it landscape style. So this is a really large image, so it really is a nice focal point for your cards. So I'm just going to take a few of these foam squares to pop it up. You'll have to let me know which paper and which layout you prefer. For the coloring that I did on Karen, she's got more chestnut hair. I used the EB6 and the TN7 Spectrum Noir marker. And then for her skin tone, I believe I used the FS4 and the FS6. Some lighter flesh tones. So I'm going to put that just like that. So here's my two cards. So just imagine this in all different kinds of beautiful pattern papers and different skin and hair colors. I love it. I'm just so inspired by these two female images because it's just making me think of so many of my different friends that I want to send pictures, or rather cards, to with little representations of them. And there's so many different ways that you can personalize these. I'm thinking now I might even add some of these little flowers here to make a little garland in her hands, just because she is just a magician with flowers. I love it. Please visit my blog, Hands, Head, and Heart, for more ideas and inspiration using all of our stamp sets from Gina K Designs and at Stamp TV. Thank you for watching today. God bless.